So today's game starts off with the perk defense, which turns into the Geller system, which goes as e4, and then opponent plays d6, which I respond by moving my knight to f3. Now here, the opponent usually plays the c7 pawn down to c5, but he broke from the opening theory and just went for a small center defense. Now, I continued. The engine kept wanting me to move my pawn up, and I didn't do that until it didn't want me to. So I was focused on castling. I castled. At this point, now I moved it up, but the engine didn't want me to anymore. Oh well. So we trade as expected. A little surprised he didn't want to keep trading, but that is a good spot for knight. So I move up, go as some pressure, threaten the knight. Engine wanted me to go move my pawn up, and although that would have been a better move in the long run, I don't really like having my king so vulnerable. That leaves him open to too many attacks later on, so I prefer avoiding it. He, of course, threatens the bishop, and I don't want to lose it, so I move him backward. You can also move him forward, as the engine suggests, but I didn't really want to make a trade. I like having my bishop. Again, it just keeps wanting me to develop my pawns, but again, I'd rather just keep my king safe. Now here was a big blunder on my part, which I didn't notice at the time. Looking back, it should have been fairly obvious. Feel free to pause and try to find what it is. So if you could find it, it was just moving the bishop down to g4. Then my queen has nowhere to go. I can't move up because of this knight. Can't move up anymore because, of course, the bishop. If I capture, recapture with the bishop. And I can't retreat because that bishop is just super strong and is on that diagonal. So after that plays, he didn't notice it either. He moved up his pawn. And I noticed the threat there on the bishop or on the queen and defended against it. So it was kind of a 2-in-1. It was quite nice. And I got to take his bishop out of the game. I always prefer having bishops opposed to knights. So I always take that trade. Now he let me have a pawn. I was perfectly fine making that trade and giving up some pawns because now I wanted to focus on the center. So he's got a lot of pieces clustered in. His bishop is kind of stuck. So I see some great threats I can make, especially having these two nice open files and these rooks, and I can bring in these pieces to come clear them up as I do later on. So he takes the sacrifice, takes the pawn. I move up my knight, put him up there because if he captures, I get to move my bishop in, and if he doesn't, then I have another threat on that nice pawn. So this big blunder was a big help. If you'd like to pause it again, try to find what it did, go ahead. And if you could find it, all I did was move my knight up to d6, because now I'm threatening his knight, and I have the chance of opening this up, after which I have two threats on this this knight on d7, both from my rook and my queen. And then, of course, I have the other pieces that I can continue to move in. I was planning on moving this bishop in next. So we, of course, trade. Now, this was odd, is he thought that he had me forked, being between the bishop and the rook, which, yes, I am forked, but there's a very easy way out of it. I could just capture the knight. And of course, he can't recapture because then I would get his queen as well. So what he ends up doing is moving. Sorry. Computer. There we go. All right. There we go. Sorry about that. Technical difficulties. So he moves his queen up to protect it. I then move in my bishop to add some threats on this pawn with the intent of capturing it with the bishop. Then he captures which piece was that? It was a bishop. So he captures the bishop, and instead of recapturing, I saw a better move and decided to do that. So I let him take the bishop for free, didn't punish that, and I focused my attacks on the king. So I send in my bishop. Now I have a fork between the king and the rook, so I'm going to get at least one of them. He moves out of the way, which now gives me mate in 7 moves, and I continue. And I will show you that mate as I can do it here. So this is where he resigned. I'll show you why. I had mate in 4. So he can't capture because then queen to e7 is checkmate. And if he recaptures with his queen, then queen f7 is checkmate. So his only possible move to delay it at least a little bit more is to go g8. At this time, I just take the queen, so that is out of the way. Now, it doesn't really matter what he does here too much. The only way to delay the inevitable the most is by giving himself a little opening over on h6, or sorry, on h7. So now his queen can move in here once my pieces move in. So now my move again. I move the rook in now, sacrificing the rook. So if he captures the rook, then queen f7, checkmate. So he couldn't do that. He'll have to use that little pocket that he just opened. At this point, I have 2 different options. I'm getting mate in 2 with either one. I can either go queen to a6 or queen to f7. Doesn't really matter which one because they both threaten this key g6 square. So let's say I go here. And now it doesn't really matter what he does. He can come threaten any piece he wants, capture anything, because queen g6, that is checkmate. He can't capture because of my bishop, can't run away because of my rook. If you like this video, subscribe for more.